What's up, guys? I'm still in this illness stupor, although I think I'm doing a little bit better than I was yesterday. And the bet that I had didn't really help me out yesterday. The New Orleans Pelicans, they were winning by 13 in the fourth quarter. They might have been winning by more than that. I don't know. Double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. They were still up 6 and covering in the final minute and a half or something. And, what are they going to do? I'll just lose in overtime. Just have a total implosion, basically just like the other one against the Memphis Grizzlies. Just do it again. Deja vu, repeat performance. I wasn't on the first of those two, but I was certainly on the one last night. I think it should have gotten there. I think it should have been a cover. It really came down to horrible free throw shooting on the part of New Orleans there. New Orleans was like 63% from the free throw line. That was like the difference in the game. Like they had more free throw attempts, more field goal attempts. I think rebounds were close. Maybe they slightly lost in rebounds. They had more points in the paint, fewer turnovers. They outplayed Memphis in that game. Come on, man. And then, unfortunately, I was not on Texas State in the bowl games. I had mentioned the reasons that kept me off of all of those games, but it seems like winning that first bowl is a pretty big motivator, and Texas State was definitely pumped up for that game. I can't believe I didn't remember that Texas State is in San Marcos. I think it's San Marcos, right? Somewhere basically like a bit west of where Houston is. Can't believe I forgot exactly where they are. I knew where they are because I watch true crime stuff, and there was a weird like disappearance of a student who went to school there and disappeared when driving back home, and I think he got lost and wound up succumbing to the elements outside, and he was probably high, but that's neither here nor there. Very unfortunate situation, a very strange disappearance there, but I'm into that creepy shit. Let's move on to today. I have one play in the NBA and one play in the NHL today. I'm not on these bowl games, although it's questionable whether or not I should be. The first bowl game up at 2 p.m. is the Military Bowl, presented by GoBowling.com. And that is in, where is that game? I don't even know. Texas, it's in Annapolis, Maryland. It's hosted by the Naval Academy. Great. That is Virginia Tech and Tulane. Virginia Tech is up from 4.5 to 10, going through the 10. They were at 10.5 a little while ago. They have 55% of the cash and 55% of the tickets. I think the feeling, like recreational bettors might come and look at this and say, well, Tulane is a 2-loss team and they're a 1-loss team before they lost their conference championship to SMU there. And think, how are they possibly getting 10 points here against a 6-6 Virginia Tech team? So I do think the public sentiment is going to be that there's got to be value taking all those points with Tulane. However, I think Tulane, I would only lean to Virginia Tech here. I think Tulane is not a motivated team here at all. This is actually a step down from Tulane's bowl last year. Last year was the year for Tulane, man. I was on Tulane in their bowl last year, and they had that really crazy game that was back and forth, and they wound up beating USC in one of the New Year's Six bowls. It was the biggest bowl, I think, in Tulane's program history. Probably. It was a huge bowl win, massive win. After that, they were on the verge of winning the conference and maybe getting to a pretty big bowl this year, and it was not so, and they lost to SMU. Now they're not going to a bigger bowl like that. They're actually stepping down, taking a step down from where they went last year and falling into this Military Bowl here. And yeah, I just think that's a bad spot. And Tulane's got a lot of opt-outs now, man, including their star quarterback, Pratt, who was the quarterback last season as well. He has hit the transfer portal, I believe. He's gone, so he's not playing in this game. So Tulane, they have more opt-outs than Virginia Tech does. They're going to be missing some key components here, which is also why this line is where it's at, especially the Pratt not playing in this game. That's a pretty big, that's going to make a pretty big difference. And I think motivationally, there's no way that I would be on Tulane here. I kind of want to be on Virginia Tech, but I don't want to lay 10 points either. It's one of those games where the line just moves so quickly and gets out of grasp for you. But I think it's a much better spot for Virginia Tech, and the line looks suspicious based on the team's records. Virginia Tech, I believe, had to win a couple of games late to even become bowl eligible. So that makes me, I want to be on them too. They won 2 of their last 3. to even make 6-6 and become bowl eligible. And they were a team that started 1-3 to start the season. And they were able to do it right at the end. They won on the road at Virginia, became bowl eligible. They're in this now. And I believe Virginia Tech actually has not won a bowl since like 2016 or 2017, around there. So I think Virginia Tech is going to be the motivated team out of these two here. I just, looking at the market and the fact that the line is so high, I'm just not sure that I can quite do it. But again, like I said, I think there's a big motivational discrepancy on the side of Virginia Tech, and Tulane is going to be without their best offensive player in their quarterback, Pratt. So I can't do it. There's no way I would want to be on Tulane there at all. The next bowl up at 5:30 my time, Eastern time, is the Duke's Mayo Bowl, North Carolina and West Virginia. This has some weird components to it, too. West Virginia's up from 3-6. Actually, I think they were sitting around 7, and the line has moved back a little bit, but they have 59% of the cash on them and 54% of the tickets. Looks like the cash discrepancy is still on West Virginia. The line moved up a bit on West Virginia, I believe, because North Carolina has had more players hit the transfer portal than West Virginia has, although I think most of the key offensive players, I think, for both teams are actually still going to be there for this game. And then it kind of comes down to motivation as well. I kind of lean West Virginia because the line looks a little bit suspicious on West Virginia. Why is West Virginia laying this many points? So people probably think that think that North Carolina is the better team here, even though the line is, of course, telling you that's not the case. I like how West Virginia finished. They finished winning 4 of their last 5, even though they were already bowl eligible after winning 2 of those final 4 wins that they got. They finished well, although, of course, the last 2 were against Cincinnati and Baylor, so who cares about that? And the others were UCF and BYU, so those wins aren't very impressive, but they still played well down the stretch. So that is the case with West Virginia. They played pretty well. I think for West Virginia, I think for both of these teams, these guys that are on the team have not been involved in bowl wins. West Virginia's last bowl win was in the Liberty Bowl in 2020. And I believe for North Carolina, it might even actually go further back than that. And North Carolina actually lost this bowl game in 2020, I want to say, or maybe 2021 actually, to South Carolina, which was the second installment of the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And it was the first iteration of it where the winning coach got the Mayo bath. This is how far we've fallen as a society, man. So the winning coach, it's almost like the coaches almost have an incentive to lose this game because the winning coach of this game gets a vat of Duke's Mayo dumped on them as part of the post-game celebration. And that's happened the last 2 years. It was, I think Spurrier got it for South Carolina. Was he there then? I don't even know. And then I forget who it was last year who won this bowl game, but it's a ridiculous, gross situation there. It's better than when it was the Meineke Car Care Bowl, though, and the winning coach got a car dropped on them. No. But this Duke's Mayo bath is just a crazy post-game ritual. It's one of the most ridiculous things in college football, and it's just, we're total degenerates as a society, although you just kind of have to laugh at it because it's so hilariously bad. But anyway, what I was saying is that I think North Carolina has gone longer without a bowl win than West Virginia has. So I think most players on both these teams have not experienced a bowl win in their careers. Both of these teams do have most of their guys showing up for this, I believe, although North Carolina has had more players transfer out than West Virginia has. Not necessarily key players, but more guys on the team are going to be gone for North Carolina, which is why I think that's partially affecting the line here. Because I think otherwise the line's going to look a little bit suspicious as far as why is West Virginia favored by that much against North Carolina? I think they like the offense that North Carolina puts up. North Carolina certainly has the better offense, but their defense sucks. And people are going to like the fact that North Carolina is a high-scoring team, but they're going to remember North Carolina started off the season 6-0, and they were ranked. But that's a reason I don't like North Carolina that much, is because they finished weak. They finished only winning 2 of their last 6 games and kind of stumble into this bowl here. And for this program, at least, it's kind of a ho-hum bowl. It's a bowl that the program was in a couple years ago, even though they didn't win the bowl. It's I don't know. How excited can you be for this? I don't know. And the bowl game is in North Carolina, so it is closer to the University of North Carolina's home campus. But is it a situation where they're going to consider it to not be that much of a reward because it's a bowl that the program has been to before and they're not really going anywhere that far from home? I don't know. This one's a little bit tough to gauge there, but I think West Virginia did finish the stronger of the two teams, and I do kind of lean that way with the fact that they had a stronger finish and they have fewer opt-outs than North Carolina does in this game. So that's kind of the way I look at that. And I'm not sure the bowl history has that much of an effect on that one. The Holiday Bowl, which is the first of the two night games tonight, DirecTV Holiday Bowl, which is in San Diego, California. Yeah, it's at Petco Park, the San Diego Padres stadium here. And my lean on this is actually against the market, and the market is like indicating such that I can't actually play this. Louisville is sitting at 6.5. I think they were kind of around 7 for a little bit. They have 58% of the tickets, but the cash looks like it's a 50-50 split right now. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is on USC, but I would not want to have any part of USC here. USC has way more transfers out. Their quarterback who started the season, who was like the front runner for the Heisman for a bit, he's not playing in this game. USC has a lot of opt-outs in this game, more than Louisville has. So their quarterback, what's his face? I forget his name. What's his name? Caleb Williams, he's out for this game. USC has more transfers out. USC is like the epitome of disappointed team. They're like the epitome of team that you want to fade in the bowl season. As I mentioned, they were in that bigger bowl last year. I think it was the Fiesta Bowl. Maybe they lost to Tulane last year, the one that I was on. But of course, USC did lose that game. But USC is a team they expect to be in like a New Year's Six Bowl or even better than that every year. Like I think when they started this season, they were ranked so high that they were expecting they were going to be competing to get into like the college football playoff. So they have completely crashed to the point where now they're in the Holiday Bowl and they're not even going that far from home for this one. Going to San Diego, I guess they played in Arizona last year, if it was indeed the Fiesta Bowl, so that's not that far either. But going to San Diego is even less far, so I don't know. I don't think they're going to be pumped for this, and the fact that they have so many opt-outs kind of tell you where their head is at there. Although we've seen teams with a lot of opt-outs, this is kind of the first year of the transfer portal stuff. We've seen teams with a lot of opt-outs actually do well in these bowls, just kind of crazy. So we might have to adjust the way that we think about these opt-outs, and it might become like a situation where the team like rallies because they know they have like a shell of a roster and they just like play their guts out, maybe because those guys didn't expect to get to like play in a bowl. They expected the starters to be playing in the bowl, and now those starters aren't playing, so the backups get to be like on that big stage. So maybe it's kind of that type of situation there. So that plus like the market and like what we've been seeing with some of these opt-out teams so far kind of keeps me off of it. But this would be, in the past, this would be a bowl where I would be so going against USC here, man. USC started off 6-0. I think they were ranked in the top 6, 5, maybe. I don't even know where they were. They were looking toward the football playoff, and then they just totally crashed and burned, and they lost 5 of their last 6 games. Once they started facing actual competition and actual ranked teams, they lost to all of them, and they almost lost that one game that they won to Cal as well, which was kind of a bad spot, a sandwich spot, and I believe I was on Cal in that one. Just really, really awful finish to the season for USC. They've fallen from what their preseason aspirations were, probably more than any team in college football. So there's no way that I would be on USC in a game like this. No way. I think the motivation, they might get some motivation just from the fact that the guys that are going to be playing are the backups, like I said, in a lot of cases. So that might be the one thing. But yeah, the market read looks like it's kind of towards the USC side, which really just kind of scares me off of it. But the motivational aspect of it has me almost wanting to pull the trigger on Louisville. But then the other problem with that is that Louisville is a ranked team, 15th ranked in the country, and they have the better record, 10-3. So people might look at that, and the public might actually like Louisville here because they're not like a no-name team here. People know that Louisville did pretty well this year. So that's the other thing that keeps me off of it. Even though USC is a name team and people might look at this and think there's value taking USC and think, why is USC such a big underdog? But Louisville has the better record and it's ranked higher. So the public is probably going to be seeing that and taking that into account as well. So I just can't get there with either of them, man. And then Louisville, is their motivation in question? I don't know, because they did lose their last 2 games to finish the season there. The game against Kentucky, I was actually on Kentucky. That was a bad spot for Louisville because they were already in the ACC title game at that point and probably looking ahead to that. And then they didn't win the ACC championship either. But at that point, they had 2 losses, so they knew they weren't going to get into the college football playoff. And Florida State didn't even get in, even though they're undefeated, probably because Jordan Travis is injured. Florida State got the shaft job and didn't even get into the college football playoff, even though they were undefeated. So Louisville, I think, knew they weren't getting into the college football playoff. So I don't know how disappointing a result that will be. The fact that they didn't win the ACC, I don't know if that downgraded them bowl-wise that much. Maybe if they won the ACC, maybe they'd be in like a New Year's Six bowl. I guess they probably would be. So I guess they took a step down a little bit as far as going into the Holiday Bowl here. But Louisville had a really good season. I think they had an unexpectedly good season. So they exceeded expectations this year, I would say. So I think they're the team that should probably be more motivated than the USC team. So that's kind of the way I look at that. Like Louisville exceeded expectations, whereas USC did not. But like I said, the market and the fact that we've seen like these players that play in place of these like opted out players actually play pretty well in these bowls. So, or have been so far. This is the first year we're seeing it. So it becomes a really difficult handicap, man. I just don't think I can play it. I just don't think I can play any of these bowls here. And then the final one, what bowl is it? The Texas Bowl, which is in Houston, Texas, the TaxAct Texas Bowl. Texas A&M and Oklahoma State is the final game. Or Oklahoma State, this looks like at some point Oklahoma State was a 5-point underdog, and now they're a 3-point favorite. I didn't see them as a 5-point underdog. I did see Texas A&M was around a 1.5 or a 2-point favorite a couple days ago, and then the line really shifted yesterday to Oklahoma State being a favorite. And I don't know what exactly spurred that on, but I know that at this point it looks like Texas A&M's quarterback is now opting out of this game. So I don't know if that was a recent announcement and that's why the line moved like this. I'm not really sure, but Texas A&M, their best quarterback they had this season, their starting quarterback, is out for this game. Now he's opting out. So I think that is the case there. So that might have influenced the line here, but Oklahoma State's sitting a 3-point favorite. They got 77% of the cash and 61% of the tickets now. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is on Oklahoma State here, but I don't know, man. This has me questioning a lot here as well. So Texas A&M, I think because their quarterback is going to be out there hit by the transfer portal a bit more than Oklahoma State is. Oklahoma State, Gunnar Gundy has opted out of this game, though. He's Mike Gundy's son and one of their backup quarterbacks there. He's gone for this game, but he's not their starting quarterback. Anyway, Oklahoma State just had a pretty good season, man, and they didn't really finish like poorly. Like they finished winning a bunch of games, like most of their last games down. They lost a couple games down the stretch. They lost the UCF one really badly, which I was on UCF because Oklahoma State was coming off that massive win over Oklahoma. And then Oklahoma State didn't get there for me in the Big 12 championship. They didn't do very well there against Texas. So that's how they finished after they beat BYU on that weird like fumble turnover thing. So I don't know, but Oklahoma State, I think they actually exceeded expectations this year. I don't think they came into the season really even expecting to be in the Big 12 championship and being ahead of Oklahoma, but that's, that's where they wound up. Or even being ahead of like maybe Kansas State. Like I'm not sure if they expected to be there either. So I think they did exceed expectations a bit, but they're the team that's ranked, whereas Texas A&M is not. And I think Oklahoma State has the better record of the two teams. So that just kind of keeps me away from this one too. Like the public has been on Oklahoma State the whole time, and when Texas A&M was a favorite, it kind of had me leaning to Texas A&M because Texas A&M has the worst record and they're not ranked, whereas Oklahoma State is ranked. So that was kind of having me lean Texas A&M. But now I kind of think, looking at how the market has shifted, I kind of lean the opposite way now. But it's just really tough to gauge like how much of that line movement was just because Texas A&M's quarterback is out now, and how much of that is going to affect how Texas A&M plays. I don't know. Very tough to gauge this game. And this game, I guess, is closer to Texas A&M's home than it is to Oklahoma State. But is that going to mean that Texas A&M just doesn't consider it to be as much of a reward? I don't know. There are a lot of things going into this, and both of these teams are constantly in bowls. So I don't think that being in this bowl really like is a huge reward to either of these teams necessarily. But Excuse me. Texas A&M, they might be taking a step down really from some of their recent seasons as well. I don't know. Finishing at 7-5 and unranked this year, I'm not really sure. They did win 2 of their last 3, and the first of those 2 wins was to become bowl eligible, although that was against Mississippi State, and then they beat Abilene Christian, who is an FCS team, so I don't know who really cares about that, I guess. So this one, yeah, this one's kind of all over the place and tough to gauge at all. So that's the bowl breakdown. That's how I look at those bowls. I'm probably going to actually have one bowl play on tomorrow's bowl slate. So you can look forward to that. Tomorrow's got at least 3 bowls, 4 bowls maybe. I don't even know what it is, but I'm probably going to be on one of the bowl games on that slate tomorrow. So we can look at that. Let's move over to the NBA here today. One thing that I will say that I was looking at this in the NBA, I actually leaned to the Toronto Raptors. I'm just not sure that I can lay 7 on the road with the Raptors. They're sitting at 7. They are sitting at 61% of the tickets, but 84% of the cash. So it does look like the cash discrepancy is on the Raptors, even though they are the public road favorite here. But Washington is on a back-to-back, and they're a team with very few wins. They played yesterday. Not as few as Detroit, though. Oh, my God. The Detroit Pistons setting a new regular season record for longest loss streak ever. In NBA history. That's awesome. Washington, they're coming off a couple of pretty hard-fought games and playing a back-to-back now. So they played Golden State on the road and played them to within 11. Then they went into the Christmas break, came back home, and then they didn't play that poorly against the Orlando Magic yesterday. And they were kind of hanging in that game almost the whole way. Made it close again near the end, got to within 4 again near the end after letting Orlando kind of get out to a decent lead for a bit, and Washington did not go away. They played pretty much right up until the end there. Now they have to turn around and play again right away against the Toronto Raptors. I think it's going to be tough for Washington to get right back up off the mat again after playing Orlando really tough last night, and now they get Toronto, who has a pretty bad record. I like Toronto in this one, and Toronto hasn't played since before the Christmas break, and they went into the break playing pretty poorly on a 3-game losing streak, but they lost to Denver and Philadelphia, and then I think they were on a back-to-back after that, and they came back home after playing in Philadelphia. Pretty tough game there tough games against Denver and Philadelphia, and then they came back home and dropped the game to Utah as well. So, yeah, I think that going into that break on such a bad note, I think that's going to help them refocus, and I think they're not going to overlook Washington in this one because they went into the break on a 3-game loss streak so badly. Even though they do have Boston up next, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a look ahead because you're an 11-18 team. You can't really overlook teams, really, man. And you went into the break on a bad note. I think you're going to adjust. And Toronto's certainly in the much better rest spot there. So that's the way I look at that. What game am I actually on, though? Do I have anything else to talk about in this slate? Yeah, probably not. The game I'm actually on, and I like the way the market reads on this, but I kind of like the spot as well. I'm on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dallas Mavericks are down from 4 to 3.5. I was able to get the 4 +4 on the Cavs. It looks like the 4s are still around. It looks like it's 3.5 with juice at a lot of places and still 4. Mavericks have 77% of tickets and 60% of the cash. So the cash discrepancy is on the Cleveland Cavs. We got to turn it around in the NBA, man. I should not have lost that game last night. I felt that was a good play. I really liked the situation and the market read on that one, and it looked like it was surely going to get there right up until pretty much the end. And then, yeah, the way that ended was just total BS. Dallas Mavericks, they're on a 2-game win streak, and they played on Christmas 2 days ago, and they're coming off going to Phoenix and winning on Christmas, even though Phoenix hasn't been playing as well as they did last year. That's still the Phoenix Suns, man. They're still a team that has a stacked roster. That's still a big win for the Dallas Mavericks. Going into Phoenix, beating Kevin Durant and, Eric Gordon and those guys there, Devin Booker. Phoenix still has a stacked roster, man. Dallas went in and they beat them, and they beat them by 14, but the game was fairly close getting later in the game there. And Phoenix was actually the favorite of 4.5 there, and Dallas was able to pull away at the end. Hard-fought game on the national stage, a spotlight game on Christmas, big game on Christmas. Now they're coming back home off of that, and maybe because they were away on Christmas, maybe a return home, even though it's just from that one game. It's possible that the return home, I don't know if they got their Christmas stuff done before they went to Phoenix or after, but it's possible they still have Christmas things that they're dealing with coming back home to family as well. So that might be an added distraction for Dallas. Coming back home, they might still have some Christmas stuff to be doing because they had to play on Christmas. So that is a possibility as well. I'm not totally sure about that. But they were in Houston on the 22nd, and then they came home, played San Antonio on the 23rd, and then had to go out and play Phoenix, and played well in both of those games. So they weren't distracted in those games, but maybe the Christmas distractions are going to come into play here. I think they're in a letdown spot off of the big win over Phoenix. And who do they have up next? They have to start a road trip. They go to Minnesota, who has one of the best records in the Western Conference, one of the best records in basketball, really, and then Golden State right after that. A couple of big games on deck, too. I think this is a sandwich spot coming off a big win at Phoenix, who was a playoff team last year as a stacked team on Christmas. Now they get an out-of-conference opponent in Cleveland coming in, and they have Minnesota tomorrow. And they might have, because they know they have to go back out tomorrow, they might be like getting those like Christmas things done at home, having to get them done before then. I think Dallas might slip up in this game, man. Whereas Cleveland, they've had 3 days off. I think they took that time off. They had that time off for the holidays, even though they went in beating Chicago, but I think beating Chicago is not really a big deal. It's not really a big win for them. That's how they finished. They didn't finish on a big win streak, although they did win 4 of the last 5, but none of them were really against great teams. So they went into the Christmas break there on an okay note, but I don't think that's going to like break any momentum or anything like that. I think they're going to be focused coming out of there, going to Dallas. They just had the break. They had the holiday break. They get to leave all that behind. They get to be focused instead of distracted because they're going back out from home again, assuming they were just at home for all the Christmas stuff after they had gone to Chicago. I think they were at home doing all the Christmas stuff for that. I think they were able to get that out of the way. They're in the much better rest spot and travel spot here, even though they do have Milwaukee up next. Cleveland's only a 17-13 team, and Dallas is a pretty good team, so I think they're going to be focused on Dallas here. Dallas is the top team in the Southwest Division as well. Not the best division in basketball, but even so, I like it. I think it's a bad spot for Dallas, basically a sandwich spot. I think Cleveland is in the better spot to be focused here and be ready to go. I like Cleveland. That's the way I'm going in that one. And then turning over to hockey, we have like a full slate of hockey, but when hockey, like when a sport like this, like a day-to-day sport resumes from like a big break, like NHL was off for like 3 or 4 days for the holiday break. They all get like the holiday off. The NHL's not in session for those days around the holiday. When you come out of a break, I kind of try to treat it like it's like an NFL bye, where it's like what teams went into that break like doing really well versus what teams went into that bye on like a bad note. So you get that discrepancy there where the teams try to like turn it around if they went in on a bad note, whereas if a team went in on a good note, it's like they don't really have that much to change. So where am I going with this? I almost wanted to go with Tampa Bay because Florida went into the holiday break, having beaten Vegas, which was the Stanley Cup final revenge spot for Florida. I mentioned I kind of liked Florida in that game. That is a big win for Florida. Now Florida gets Tampa Bay, but I still think Florida might have to be focused on this because Tampa Bay is actually only 1 point behind them in the standings, even though their record looks significantly worse than Florida's. They're only 1 point behind them. Florida's up from -101 to -113 as the favorite on the road, but they have 59% of the tickets, but 57% of the cash is on Tampa. Excuse me. So it does look like Tampa does have the cash discrepancy on them. Florida went into the bye. Went into the holiday break having gotten that huge win over Vegas, but they had lost a bunch of games before that. They'd lost 4 out of 5. They're struggling on that Canada road trip there, and then they struggled on the return home from the road trip too, which is a game I was on St. Louis there because they were returning home from the road trip, and they had the huge Vegas game up next, so they dropped the game against St. Louis too. So if Florida had finished not having lost a bunch of games before they beat Vegas, I would be more likely to want to be on Tampa here. And Florida does have the Rangers up next, which is a big game as well. Rangers, one of the best records in hockey. Excuse me. But I think this is still like a Florida rivalry between them and Tampa. I'm not even sure that they've played yet this year. I don't even know if they have yet. It seems weird that they wouldn't have played yet at all this year, but I don't know. I don't know what the case is there. Excuse me. But Tampa finished actually stronger than Florida did, and they actually beat Vegas and beat St. Louis and then beat Washington going into the break. So I think that's kind of a strong finish. And they also have the Rangers up next as well. So if people look at like common opponents, they're going to see, well, Tampa beat Vegas too, and they beat St. Louis big time. So public might actually do that syllogism thing and actually want to take Tampa here, even though it looks like that isn't the case based on what we see with the ticket percentages. But all of that just keeps me off of it, man, even though normally I would say like this could be a big letdown spot for Florida after that big win, but looks like it probably isn't in this case. So I'm just going to stay away. The game that I'm on, though, even though it looks like the cash discrepancy is against me, I'm on the Detroit Red Wings. It looks like, excuse me, the line is at least moving in my direction a bit. I took the Detroit Red Wings plus 124, so I got a decent underdog price on them. I like this. Minnesota's down from minus 144 to minus 135 on the money line, even though it looks like they have 55% of the tickets and 74% of the cash. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is on Minnesota, but I'm not quite sure I buy that because the line is moving against Minnesota, dropping them to a lesser favorite there. I think the public likes Minnesota more than they like the Detroit Red Wings, man, even though their records are kind of similar. They're both like slightly above 500 if you exclude the overtime losses. I don't know, but Minnesota, they went into the holiday break as one of the hottest teams. They won 6 of their last 7, and that included beating Vancouver in a shootout, beating Boston twice, once on the road in overtime, unfortunately for me. So they had a really good stretch of games. They won their last 3 as well going into the break. Now they have that huge break. And who do they have up next after Detroit? They got Winnipeg up next, which is a big divisional matchup there. Winnipeg is one of the top teams in their division, 1 point off from the division lead there. So that, I think that is a bigger game as well. I think it's possible Minnesota might overlook the Red Wings a little bit here. And the Red Wings did not go into the break on a good note at all. They went into the break having lost their last game to New Jersey, but they also lost 5 of their last 6 games, and they lost 8 of their last 10 games. So they went in on a really bad note, and they lost to San Jose in there. They lost to Ottawa. They lost to Anaheim, some bad losses in there too. They lost to Philadelphia, and then one of the only wins they had in that stretch was the rematch revenge against Philadelphia shortly after they had lost at Philadelphia. They were able to beat them at home in a ridiculous 7-6 shootout. So they're not playing well at all going into the break. That's why I like this. I think they can use that break to readjust things, refocus, and then they get to go out on the road now. So kind of put those holiday distractions aside, go on the road, face Minnesota. I think it's a good spot for them. Having lost that last game, you get to readjust, like come up with something new, try to fix things. Minnesota, you went into that break having beaten Boston 2 of your last 3 games. Like, what can you even change, man? And you're just staying at home like throughout the holidays. And you got the big game against Winnipeg on deck. It's kind of like a sandwich spot for Minnesota here as well. Excuse me. So I'm on Detroit. I like it. So that's going to do it for me here, man. Hopefully that was some more good information here. My 2 plays out of this big card. I'm only on 1 NBA play and 1 NHL play. I'm on the Cleveland Cavaliers +4 and the Detroit Red Wings +124 on the money line. Let's get it done. Let's get a winning day for once here. Even though I had winning at least one winning day before I lost yesterday, but still, let's do it, man. Let's get it done. Have a good day. Peace.